Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2 Corinthians, the 12th chapter. It is not expedient for me, doubtless, to glory. I will come to visions and revelations of the Lord. And let's pull this up as well. It says here, this boasting will do no good, but I must go on. I will reluctantly tell about visions and revelations from the Lord. I knew a man in Hamashiach about 14 years ago, whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell. God knoweth. Such an one caught up to the third heaven. He's speaking about himself here. Okay, so he's saying here, he had an experience, as he says, about 14 years ago. It was an out of body experience, but he couldn't tell. He wasn't too sure whether he was in the body or out of the body. But he went up to the third heaven, which is the spirit world. And I knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell, God knoweth. NLT for verses 2 and 3, right? It says, I was caught up to the third heaven 14 years ago. Whether I was in my body or out of my body, I don't know. Only God knows. Yes, only God knows whether I was in my body or outside my body. But I do know. Where we at? Verse 4, how that he was caught up into paradise. So he went into the spirit world and heard unspeakable words, which is not lawful for a man to utter. So imagine that, right? Going in there, and he said when he came back, he couldn't even describe, like, it's unlawful. That's how Paul described it. It was unlawful to even try to summarize or describe the things that he heard. That's how glorious it was there. Of such an one will I glory, yet of myself I will not glory, but in mine infirmities. NLT says that experience is worth boasting about, but I am not going to do it. I will boast only about my weaknesses. See, so in the previous chapter, he boasted about the things he suffered, about his quote weaknesses. And he's saying here, yeah, I could boast about these great revelations that were given to me going to the spirit world, and I saw things, and like I can boast about those things, but I'm not going to do that. I'd rather highlight Yahweh Shai's strength in me or in my weakness. For though I would desire to glory, I shall not be a fool, for I will say the truth. But now I forbear, lest any man should think of me above that which he seeth me to be, or that he heareth of me. If I wanted to boast, I would be no fool in doing so, because I would be telling the truth. But I won't do it because I don't want anyone to give me credit beyond what they see in my life or hear in my message. So he didn't want to be exalted. All right, because that's human nature, right? You hear about these super divine experiences and revelations, you start to look at a person differently. And he's like, I don't want that. I don't want you to lose sight of the focal point here. You know, when I'm teaching you or when I'm around, I don't want to be extolled, you know, like I'm some great man. I'm another servant, just like you. I've just been appointed and put into this office. So to avoid all that, he said, I'm not even going to go into the details. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations that were given to me, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh. Let me close this up now. Where we at? Right. So he's saying here, because of all the revelations the Lord gave him, in order to keep him balanced and to keep him humble, the Lord gave him a thorn in the flesh, which is like a, you know, as he says here, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. So this this messenger of Satan, i.e., whatever this demon, and even if this was an infirmity that Paul had, demons are usually the causes of your infirmities anyway. So whatever it is that this thorn in his flesh, this thing that was bothering him, the Lord had it to where it stayed with Paul, so that if he ever would have the thought of like feeling any high-mindedness or feeling puffed up with all this revelation and power and knowledge the Lord gave him, that would be a reminder to stay humble. But it bothered him, right? As he says in verse 8, for this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that's 3 times, that it might depart from me, to basically for the Lord to rid him of this thorn. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rejoice in my infirmities, that the power of Hamashiach may rest upon me. So he says here, each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness, because it's highlighted. So now I am glad to boast about my weakness, so that the power of Hamashiach can work through me. So with the things Paul is going through, he has to depend on the Lord, right? As he says, my grace is enough, is sufficient for you. So, the more you rely on me, or the weaker you are, the more you rely on me. Okay, and the more I can work through you to show, as he says, to my strength is made perfect in weakness. So Paul says he's going to gladly rejoice in his infirmities, because that shows more the power of the Lord. Because he has to depend on the Lord, but also it's like when the Lord, even in a not directly related, but when the Lord delivered Israel with Gideon, right, and the men that were with him, and he kept cutting down the numbers, even though it to the outward eye it would make them look weaker, but it was really to glorify the Lord, because then nobody can say like they did this of their own strength. They'd say, how were they able to do this except the Lord was with them? See? So like similarly here, by being made weaker, it gives a greater opportunity for the Lord's power to be magnified, to show that these things that the Apostle Paul was doing wasn't because he was some great man, but because of the great power that was working within him. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses for Hamashiach's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong, meaning strong in the Lord. When you're weak in the body, weak in the flesh, you're stronger in the Lord. I am become a fool in glorying. Ye have compelled me, for I ought to have been commended of you. For in nothing am I behind the very chiefest apostles, though I be nothing. NLT says, you have made me act like a fool, boasting like this. You ought to be writing commendations for me, for I am not at all inferior to these super apostles, even though I am nothing at all. So he's like, yo, I had to, show you real quick. That's why he listed those things that, look, don't be out here, trying to downplay me. Yeah, I may have been, one of the last ones to see Yahweh Shai, but not one of the least. Verse 12, truly the signs of an apostle were wrought among you in all patience, in signs and wonders and mighty deeds. So he's saying, like, with the I showed the signs of apostleship, right, and the great signs and deeds and the patience in which I dealt with you. For what is it wherein ye were inferior to other churches, except it be that I myself was not burdensome to you? Forgive me this wrong. The only thing I failed to do, which I do in other churches, was to become a financial burden to you. Please forgive me for this wrong. Behold, the third time, because that's something that Paul, as he says, he could boast in, right? And he can boast in that because that's not everybody would do that. There were some who don't have a problem with that. Okay. But as he's saying here, as he's saying here, in all the other churches I did that, but for you, I deliberately did not. Okay, because I wanted to be as non-burdensome to you as possible. But if that because of doing that, it made me seem like a less of an apostle, okay, then forgive me for doing that. Behold, the third time I am ready to come to you. Right? So here it's as Paul's saying, the third time, that is hinting at him being there twice already. Right? Now, like I mentioned in the book of Acts, he doesn't mention the second time he went there. But in his previous in the previous chapters in Second Corinthians, he mentions about that painful, was it the painful visit? So he says here, behold, the third time I am ready to come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you, for I seek not yours, but you. So I'm not here. I don't want your stuff. I'm here for you. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. Right. So are the children the one that provide for the parents? Is it not the other way around? So when I come, I'm not there for your stuff. I'm there for you, to provide for you the spiritual things. And I will very gladly spend and be spent for you. Though the more abundantly I love you, the less I be loved. I will gladly spend myself and all I have for you, even though it seems that the more I love you, the less you love me. So you can see in Paul's writing to the Corinthians, he was really like, because they gave him the most trouble, right? So he was really, really invested. But you could also see like the care that Paul had for the believers in these churches. But be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile. And here what he's basically saying, I'll read this in the LT first, but it says, some of you admit I was not a burden to you, but others still think I was sneaky and took advantage of you by trickery. So he's saying, like, granted, I didn't burden you directly, right? I didn't come on to you and be a financial burden or, try to stress you out. But some of you are basically saying, Paul was still crafty. He tricked us, right, by acting like he wasn't openly burdening us to still get what he wanted from us, but in an indirect way. And so he asks, did I make a gain of you by any of them whom I sent on to you? So did I okay, I'm not going to be a financial burden, but I'm going to send people afterwards and they're going to be, they're going to try to make gain off of you? Did I do that? I desired Titus, and with him I sent a brother. Did Titus make a gain of you? So when Titus came over there, did he come in and take your money? Did he come and spend your money? Did he come and be a financial burden or any form of a burden to you? Walk we not in the same spirit? Did he not conduct himself as I do? Walk we not in the same steps? Did he not walk after I do? Again, think ye that we excuse ourselves unto you? We speak before God in Hamashiach, but we do all things, dearly beloved, for your edifying. It says, perhaps you think we're saying these things just to defend ourselves. No, we tell you this as Hamashiach's servants, and with God as our witness. Everything we do, dear friends, is to strengthen you. For I fear lest when I come, I shall not find you such as I would. So Paul is saying, I'm afraid lest I should come there and you wouldn't be in a state that's pleasing to me. And that I shall be found unto you such as ye would not, because then the way I would, my reaction to that isn't something you're going to be happy to see. Lest there be debates, envyings, wraths, strikes, backbitings, whispers, swellings, tumults, and lest when I come again, my God will humble me among you, because I've been boasting all pretty much everywhere about you with how proud I am of you, and then I come here and then now I'm humbled because you are the opposite. And that I shall bewail many which have sinned already, and have not repented of the uncleanness and fornication and lasciviousness which they have committed. It says, "For I am afraid that when I come, I won't like what I find, and you won't like my response. I am afraid that I will find quarreling, jealousy, anger, selfishness, slander, gossip, arrogance, and disorderly behavior. Yes, I am afraid that when I come again, God will humble me in your presence, and I will be grieved because many of you have not given up your old sins. You have not repented of your impurity, sexual immorality, and eagerness for lustful pleasure." And these were things that the Apostle Paul was concerned about, but all in all, they were able to still fix that, even though there were still things they had to work on. They were the majority of things that the Apostle Paul addressed, they did work on. And that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Corinthians, the 12th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.